Auditing progress. So in dealing with my statement, this is a common syntax, okay? The syntax, okay, here there are actions. So you can have delete, update, which are the action, delete, update, and then search, right? So these are the actions that you can perform when you are dealing with match statement. So our focus tonight is going to be on this action, update action. Okay, but usually when you are writing a match statement, there's going to be a source table, there's going to be a target. So you are merging the target table using the source table. Okay, merging target data using source data. Using source data. All right. Now, here, that's where you start. Okay. You have to have these three conditions. When data is matched, what are you going to do? When data matches, what are you going to do? Right? When data does not match, what are you supposed to do? So you have to, within your SQL statement, instruct the SQL what they're supposed to do. So usually, if data does not match, it means there are new records. Okay, it means there are new records. Then you have to do an insert when record does not match. Now, if the record matches, the record you are trying to insert, if it matches with existing record in the table, then two things can happen. Either no action is performed, it means the record coming in is exactly the same as the record in the table, so nothing is going to happen, right? Nothing is going to happen. Otherwise, if the record in the table matches the record coming in based on certain criteria that you've set forth, either you are looking at the key level, right? Comparing key, source key, and destination key. You're comparing both, right? Looking at the source key and destination key. So if the source key with a combination of say date, it's exactly as what is in the table, that means the match, then the query now will start looking line by line, or rather row by row, to check if the data are the same, what has changed, does it need to be updated or not? Okay, does it need to be updated or not? So in type 2 dimension, type 1 dimension is usually same as writing an update statement. We all know that, right? It's same as writing update statement, updating data, right? That is type 1. Whereas type 2, by the way, before I say that, I need somebody to tell me, can you explain to me the difference? Yeah, you guys should know that. What's the difference between type 1 and type 2? Anybody?
Yeah, type 1 is it override the historical data, which doesn't, we don't have visibility of the historical data, it just override it. But type 2 will keep historical data as well as the new data inserted with a current and expired column and rows.
Okay.
Type 3 is, it doesn't change anything on the data warehouse, but on the source data, it will change, but it doesn't reflect on the data warehouse, I guess.
You guess or you know? Which one? I need a fact, somebody who has a fact on it. Okay, that's your homework. Research on type
Does
3.
it create a new column with an additional column with the new value?
Additional column. Creates additional column. Good. Whereas, what's the difference between type 2 and type 3 then?
Only the latest and the one previous value is stored. Whereas in type 2, historical or like multiple instances of historical data is stored.
So a new column is created in type 3. That's what you're saying, right?
Right, new column with the latest value, and the
Good. And a
old
new
value
row,
is in the
a new row
previous
is
column.
created in type 2, right?
Correct. Rows are created in
Rows
type
are
2.
created. Good. So that's key difference. Rows are created in type 2, whereas type 3, columns. New column, new row. Big difference, right? Now, you would notice that most data warehouse make use of type 2 and not type 3, okay? Because there's no point creating additional columns, right? When you can add additional rows. So keep expanding column doesn't make much sense. Unless you have a specific need for that. So understanding this here, okay? Understanding this, it's very, very important to what you are going to do. Right? So again, we are margin target using source data. Okay. Then you have to create a match condition. Either your condition is based on the primary key column, right? Or a combination of date and time, whatever it is that the business needs, then you match based on that. So that'll become the margin criteria. So now you write 3 conditions. One is when data matches. Again, this is in no particular order, okay? When data matches, then you have to write the SQL statement then. So it's more like, right? Again, you can say case statement, right? But it's not really. It is actually technically. When matched, more like case, when, then, right? So in programming, we say if then. So you have to write up the statement if there is a match, okay? If there is a match, then there should be update statement if the data is different, okay? No match, then the record will be inserted, okay? So pretty much what we are going to be looking at. So I have some old scripts I'm going to be working with. I'm not writing any new one. I will explain it so that it's going to be a lot easier to follow. So I have a table, supplier. The supplier table has 3 columns. So we have the supplier code, which is a primary key column, the supplier name, and the supplier address. Correct? Then this is the data. You can add more data to yours when you get this. Then I have the dimension table, right? Because the way dimension data flows is you flow from, again, just generally, when you're performing ETL, right? You load the data, so you have the extract layer, right? So you have the extract layer, and from the extract layer, we go to stage, right? Staging layer. Then from your staging layer, you go to the final destination, okay? Final layer or final destination. So usually from source, you dump the data in your extract layer. Usually at this layer, data is dumped as is. No manipulation, no transformation done at the extract layer. Okay, no transformation, no manipulation is done at the extract layer. And usually at this layer, it is truncate and load. Truncate and load. Then from the extract layer, you move to the staging. Okay, you move to the staging layer. So at the staging layer, that's where you apply business logic rules. If there are calculations, right, you can actually do it at the staging layer. Okay, if there are some derived columns, that can be done at the staging layer, right? Data type conversions and all of that, it's done at the staging layer. So you can actually apply business logic at the staging layer. However, staging layer is also truncate and load. Okay, staging layer is also truncate and load. So once at this layer, you've done all the manipulation that is needed, then you can load to the final table or final layer. In this case, it could be a fact table, it could be a dimension table, it could be what do you call it? It could be, let's see, historical table, right? Or whatever table that, you know, that is designated for the final place of the data. So at this layer, generally, the data type here is the same as the data type at the staging layer. Okay, it is the same as the staging layer. The number of columns here might be slightly different from the number of columns over here. Okay, because at this stage, final layer, you can apply insert a date column, which does not exist at the staging layer, right? So these are some of the things, you know, whenever you are designing an ETL process, you put that into consideration. So you can, you know, design your process in such a way that you have these three layers in mind. Now, I've worked in an environment where we have in the same database, we have different schemas, right? We have extract schema, we have stage schema, then we have the final schema. So the same structure flows from dev environment back to production, okay? From dev to production, same flow. So whenever you are creating your table, designing your ETL process to load fact, dimensions, or historical data, think about this mode of design, okay? It makes your work a whole lot easier because you don't start from the goal to struggle over what you want to do, right? By simply dumping the data at the extract layer, you can actually take time to examine the data and do some analysis on it to see the impact when you put it on the staging environment and the final. All right. So overall, usually, unless there are some other thing going on, most times you're going to match the final data with the staging data, okay? Most times the staging layer data is the source. The target is going to be your fact, your dimension, or any other table that you want to apply the logic on. But it will be, we're just being specific when it comes to fact and dimension. That's what we're looking at, how we use my statement with fact and dimension. But again, match statement has wider application than just simply loading a dimension table. Now, another important fact is that I'm sure now you're appreciating it because a lot of people that I see these days loading mortgage table, I don't even know what they are doing, right? You ask them, what process are you using to load you? They don't even understand. But whenever you are building a data warehouse, that means the amount of data you're going to be processing is going to be quite big. So it means at the time you are, designing your process, you should also think about growth, right? Think about future growth and make that accommodation. So how do you do that? Well, let's just say you design a ITL package right now that, load the dimension table and you're using SCD transformation, or you are using lookup transformation. That means you don't have growth in mind in that design, right? So you always think about growth whenever you are doing your design, and that's why using my statement is always a better way, rather a better approach, okay? So I have this table here, supplier, creating this supplier. Then I have the dimension table, dim supplier.
Question,
Yes.
so if we're going through the ETL process using SSIS, can we also use this merge statement at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because for ETL, you just copy your query. Either you put in a stop procedure, right? Or you can just put in as a SQL task. Yeah.
Okay.
As long as it runs here fine, then you don't have any problem.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
You just mentioned that when you're designing when you're designing, you need to keep in mind the growth in mind. I I feel like I've been doing just doing this project, but I didn't need.
You're breaking up. We can't hear you. Is it from me or?
Yeah, me. Maybe it's me.
Okay.
I think I
So,
don't have good internet. That's my issue. Yeah.
okay.
Can you elaborate
what's
on
your-
that and how on the when you're thinking about the growth in mind when you're designing the data warehouse? I mean, is it?
Yeah. So, okay. What I mean by that, let's just say at the time you are designing your process, right? You are loading 1,000 records, right? So that process can handle 1,000 records. So when I say design with growth in mind, you got to think, what if I start loading 1 million records? What will be the impact, right? Will my system be able to handle the 1 million record? What if I start loading 10 million records? With my design, will it be able to handle that amount of data? So that's what I mean. You have to think of future growth. But again, if you're just building something that you want to use for yourself in your house, doesn't matter anyways. But I'm talking about now when you get to workplace, right? You come into a project and you have to, let's just say you come into a project, right? And your boss is looking at you while you are the ETL expert because you came in as data warehouse ETL developer, right? And he's asking you a question. What do you think? What would the best thing to load this dimension table? How would you explain the way you will be coming up with the process? What would be your reasoning behind whatever solution you're going to provide? Let's just say right now you know how to load dimension table. Can you tell me, explain to me the reasoning behind any solution you're going to offer to your boss?
For the loading up the dimension tables?
Yeah.
So I know after finishing completing the stagings, when I load the dimension table, I have to make sure I create the fact table.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Okay. I don't really quite know.
I'm talking about load process. Load process. How do you load dimension tables?
So for me, the experience I have at work, I don't work as an ETL person. The data engineer does the data movement for me to create the Power BI reports. But I realized that every time the users are coming in that, oh, we have this medical rep, she's no longer here. We are still seeing the name. Why is it showing up in the dashboard? We have some other people that are not showing up. So I had to ask him, what method were you using? What's your thought process when you were setting up the ETL? He said everything is truncate and load. We actually have 3 layers. We have the staging, the PSA layer, the data warehouse, and the data mart. So I was like, okay, if you continue to do the truncate and load, how do you maintain this historical data for the dimension tables? So for example, in the course of business, a team name is called remote. And coming into 2023, the team has changed name to VTE. How do you want users to know that previously they were being called remote and this is the data attached to that remote? And now in 2023, they are VTE and this is the data attached to it. I said it's not making sense for you to be using truncate and load all over the place without maintaining any form of historical data. You know, so that has been the battle that is on ground.
Yeah, exactly. See, he's not gonna like you. He's not gonna like you because you want to create more work for him. Yeah, I like that. So again, if you are called in, you know, your boss calls you in, right? Then say, hey, they just say, Nikki, we are bringing a new data process. I need your, it's going to be a dimension table. I need ideas. What's the load process? The first question he's going to ask, you know, you should be able to ask, okay, what kind of records are we expecting, you know, in terms of size, right? In terms of size, how much record are we expecting? Maybe give you a number, right? Well, you can say with this amount of records, then I think we should go with something like merge statement. So with merge, we're able to handle more data. And in case in future, we getting more than expected with merge statement, we should be able to handle it. I wouldn't encourage you to use SCD transformation because they make use of OLEDB command internally and it makes the loading process very, very slow. And with lookup transformation, it means the data will be cached, you know, before the load process starts. And also with lookup transformation, it has to update every record in the table, and that's not what we want. So when you explain this in this manner, right, then your boss knows, okay, this person understands what he or she is talking about. So when we say load process, we are talking about loading dimension. There are different processes. Either you're using lookup transformation, right? Or you're using merge statement, or you're using SCD transformation. These are various ways, right? And some will say store procedure what? Store procedure content just query. Okay. All right. So now we go to the merge query. So here I have merge query for type 1. Again, when you have to apply type 1 and type 2 on the same table, because you might have a reason why you are applying type 1 and type 2 on the same table, right? You cannot have one single merge statement for both type 1 and type 2. No, you have to have two separate merge statement, okay? Because if you have the same for both, you're going to have error, okay? So here, this is just my statement for type 1, okay? This is my statement for type 1. As you can see, what we are doing here is simply doing update, nothing else. That's what type 1 is going to do for you. Type 1 is going to do update, okay, and replace existing record. So if there is a record change, right, then we can say here, merge into destination, which is supplier, using our source on code and supplier code, right? When match, because there's only one statement for type 1. When match, then update, okay? When match, then update. What is our type 1? Our type 1 is only on the address. That's it, okay? Address is where we are applying type 1, nothing else. We're applying type 1 on address, okay? And we are saying if the address, again, here, it says when matched, an address is not equal to source address, okay? Because for you to apply dimension type on anything, you have to write something like this, okay? Where destination is not equal to source, okay? If there is a match and destination is not equal to source, then you have to specify, because it's not all the columns you want to apply changing dimension on. It could be few columns. Some might be like this, address here might be on the address, you're applying type 1. Maybe you can find a different column to apply type 2, right? So, and that's for type 1. Now this is type 2 here, okay? This is type 2. So here we are selecting, I don't want to make it, okay, make it long. Okay, so here we are inserting, we are setting into supplier, okay? And we are selecting this. We are selecting all of this. Let me put this down. So we have supplier code, supplier name, address, okay? And we are inserting in here from these records, okay? From these records. And now we are saying merge supplier target using source on supplier code, target is equal to supplier source. So now we are inserting value into the, let me expand this again.
So this looks like a funny question for you, Dose.
There is no funny
This
question, as long as I'm able to answer it.
Okay, this code that you just wrote, you know, where you said from, then you have the statements coming in.
Yeah. Mhm.
Why do we have all those columns, the select, this column, that column, da, 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 da? Why do we have all those columns? Why don't we just insert from, you know, the main statement? Why do we still have this?
Are you talking about here
You
or
see,
here?
Yes, I'm talking about the second one you
Right here?
highlighted. Yes, that's why do we have this select statement, select supplier
No, you
code?
have to expressly write out the columns. You cannot just say select star. It might work in some, but why would you want to do that?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so when you are inserting records using insert into,
Yeah.
okay? Because that's what we're doing. We're using insert into. You can use select into to insert record in a table, right?
Yes.
But insert into, then we have to supply the columns, and the number of columns we have on the table, that's our destination, must be equal to the number of columns we are supplying from the source side. So again, this is, we are inserting this record, selecting, we are selecting these values, right? Whatever we are selecting here, that's what we are inserting here, correct?
Okay.
But in here now, That's where you specify the conditions of your select statement, right? Because whatever we have in here, everything in here is what is passing data to these columns here.
Okay.
Think about this as looking at something like subquery kind of thing, right? So,
Yeah.
so this will be the outer query. I'm not saying this is that, right? But just think of it that way. So this becomes your outer query, and this becomes your what? Inner query, right? And you are selecting from the inner query.
Okay.
So whatever you are selecting, now you're using it to populate your outer, which is you're inserting here. Remember, this is our dimension table. That's where we want to insert record into. Yes, Grace.
I have a question. My question is, because you're using insert into, so they have to have the same number of column from the source and the target.
Yes.
Like my question to how do we use the MET statement if you wanna load straight from your staging who have like more column, but you want to load like you do in SSIS, you want to select just the column that you need.
Now, again, the column here, right, is the target, not the staging column. Whatever we are supplying here, right? So this is the dimension itself. The staging might have less column or more column. It doesn't matter as long as you are selecting the same amount of column that you are providing for the target. Does that make sense? Right?
Okay. So let's say my staging has 10 column and then my dimension has only 4 column. So I want to use the data from the staging from those
Yes.
4 that I have from the staging and load them into my dimension.
Good. So that's what I'm trying to say. What table is this?
That's the dimension table.
Good. That's where you're loading data into, right?
Yes.
Who owns this column?
That's the dimension table.
Good. So as long as you supply these columns, then you need to look for the equivalent of those columns from your stage and supply the same. Are you getting my point?
Yeah, does the thing to make it clear?
Yeah, I get your point, but on your staging table, usually you don't have effective date, you don't have
no, the effective date, again, as long as you have to supply, you have to, let's just say, okay, let's just say I'm only interested in 2 columns from my staging right here.
There you go. Yes.
I'm only interested, then I don't need the address. Again, I in this case, I need because I have it over there, right? But let's just say I don't have it in my final table, then I don't need to select it. But I need to make sure I supply effective date, expiration date, current flag, right? Because these are the things that makes my dimension 2, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely, yep.
So I have to supply them, but my interest is only on these 2 columns from my stage. That's it. That's all I need. So you have to select the whatever number of column that you are interested in from your staging, but you must supply all the columns that are in your dimension. Right? So here, there's going to be supplier
maybe the
code.
question, if I need to modify is question, maybe the question now is, we now know that the supplier code, supplier name, and address are coming from the source. So probably his question is the effective and expiration dates, current flag. How do we create those
No, this you
why?
already created it when you are creating your dimension table, because these are part of dimension table.
Yes. But now
So
we are moving.
the data for here, for these two,
Yes.
okay? The data for these two, it's not coming from your source. It's not coming from
Correct.
the stage.
Okay. Yeah.
It's always going to come from a static mapping like this.
Yes. Okay.
So the initial load will be the static mapping.
Mm-hmm.
For every time you create a dimension table, it's going to be a static mapping. And the same when you are doing merge, right? You update based on static data as well.
All right.
Yeah. So, but the important thing is whatever column that you are interested in supplying, that's what you need to supply. But whatever that makes your dimension type 2, for example, in this case, we need effective start date, effective end date, right? And current flag. That is coming from your source. I mean, from your target table, not from your source. Okay. So, Bryce, is that what you're asking?
Yes, no. Dozie, let's continue. You know, because when I try to like select just the column that I need, sometimes I get this error message that the column from the source has to match the number of the column from the source have to match the number of column from the destination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, well, bringing in source and the target, we get all the columns, but only the columns that we are interested in checking for the historical data, we put them in the where clause condition and we check against the source and target. So
Yeah.
that's where only the columns that we are interested in checking for the historical information goes. But otherwise, the select statement will have all of the columns that goes into the table. Did I get that right, Darcy?
Yeah. So again, look, as long as you have all the columns from your target, this is always going to be the source. I mean, the target column, right? You are inserting into this column. Then you are selecting. What are you selecting? Let's just say you want only 2 columns from your source. Well, you supply those 2 columns, then you have to supply effective day flag and all of that. But here you have to make sure that the number of columns you have represented here is also represented here. Okay.
And if some of the columns from your source do not exist on the source, you still have to represent them.
Say it again.
So if I follow the logic, just for the purposes of clarity, yeah, your targets, you have specified the number of columns you want on your targets. And from your source, you have to also specify the same amounts and the same columns from your source. Even if some of those columns do not exist on the source, for example, the date columns do not exist on the source, you still have to specify those.
In this case, yeah, as long as it's in my target, then I have to specify those columns. Now, if I specify them, no. We're talking about
the target and the source has to be same, right?
No, what has to be same is the number of columns we are supplying for our query. Okay. So if my source has 10 columns, I mean, my target in this case is this, has 10 columns. Then my select here will also have 10 columns. Now the question is, what if some of those columns are not in my source, right?
That's actually my question.
Yes.
Yeah, so we still have to supply it, whether they are there or not, as long as they are here. Because you have to have a reason why they are here and it's not here. So at least we have these 3, right? that is not in our
source.
Okay. So for these three, to initialize the data, we have to give them a static value.
Okay, which is gonna be get date or whatever we want to give.
Yeah, whatever.
them.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
or
okay.
you 1/1/9999 as a
Okay.
starting value.
All right.
Then for this, we give it the current flag is going to be Y. Simple as that.
Okay.
So this could be get effective date, could be get date. Right? So, or we can, if we have a date from, let's just say I have a date from my source table, then we just say effective date. It could be whatever start date that is in the record, right? We map it to this. All right. So now, is everybody's doubt clear on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. So now we go to our merge statement. We are merging the dimension using, you're going to merge your target. Again, I keep using the word target. You need to understand, just, have that vocab. You merge your target using your source data, okay? Then you have to supply the on condition. So here, we are merging supplier code and supplier code. And sometimes you can also have an and condition, right? For additional, because organization may have a unique way of recognizing whatever data they have, right? So it could be another ID or code, right? So it depends. So, but in this case, it's just a small table. We are just, and there's no complicated business logic involved, okay? Because in other places, you may have a unique combination of columns that will give uniqueness to the data. But in this case, we are good. So this is our insert, okay? The first insert, again here, when data doesn't match, right? When the data doesn't match, well, what are we doing? We are inserting into the table. What are the values? Again, data from the source, data from the source, data from the source, our static value. Current flag, expiration date, these are the static values, right? When data
Okay, so this
doesn't match.
starting value now. I have a question here.
Yes.
So the starting value now, we generate this the three column, which is the effective date, the expiration date. We generated them down here because
Yep.
we don't have them in the source, right?
Yes.
All right. So basically, if we don't have them in the source, so basically here we will generate them right here. We specify them up there, and then when we come to the value, then we specify them as the date and the way you put it right now.
Exactly. Yep.
And then will be generated automatically, right?
Yeah, it's already that's the data you're going to see in the table right here. It's going to insert this. It's going to insert this in the table. And insert this in the table. That's what it's going to insert.
Okay.
All right. So now this is what we make this type 2. Okay. So we say when matched. Okay. When matched, and look at this. When matched, okay, and the current flag is Y, okay? When matched and the current flag is yes, okay? If the data matches and the current flag is yes, and the supplier name is not equal to the supplier name. That is, the source. Okay, so we are using is null. So if it's null, replace it with something then, right? So you already know is null function. Then this is where our type 2 takes place, right? So we are saying if the data matches, then, and these conditions are true, okay? If the data matches and these conditions are true, then update. So our update will start. So we need to update, yes.
I'm a little confused. Why are we updating when the data matches? Shouldn't we update when the data doesn't match?
No.
I'm confused. Maybe I'm missing something.
So again, I think going back here, right? I explained this. When the data, okay, when the data matches, you are going to go through the data line by line, go through it column by column to see if there is any change. Again, what is matching here? Not all the data, right? Not all the data. We are looking at, say, the supplier, when supplier, this supplier code is equal to this supplier code.
Okay.
That means the match, right?
Right.
So if the supplier code is not equal to the supplier code, then it doesn't exist. You just simply insert the record. Again, this is where you focus on.
Correct. Got it.
Yeah?
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you
All
for
right.
reiterating. Thank you.
So now, when the data matches, then you have to check, is supplier name equal to not equal? If supplier not equal, then again, it means we are applying our type 2 on supplier name only. Remember, we have these codes here, address. We are applying type 2 on supplier name, and we are applying type 1 on the address. Okay, on the address. So now output action. Yeah, you have to supply output action. So what is the output action? The action we have is update action, right? That's our update action. And that's what we have here. Okay. So the action we are taking is to update. So you have to write this out. Update action, and it's going to be on supplier name. Address, effective date. Okay. So let me write it so that it's easier for you to follow. So I put action taken. So you have ST code.
We have to write as for the columns.
Oh, yep. Oh, yeah.
So why is the expiration date still null?
Because the new record will still be null, right? The new record will still be null.
This is updates.
So look at here.
Yes.
For this record that has changed, okay?
Yes.
For this record that has changed, what are you doing? You're updating this record. You're setting the flag to what? No.
To N. Okay.
And you are setting the expiration date to what?
Okay.
Get date -1.
Like yesterday.
Yes.
Okay.
Then the output, you need to reinsert. Again, remember when you deal with type 2, right? A new role is created, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is how you should think of it, okay? How you should think of it. There's going to be two insertion happening. So this record, it's not updated actually in the sense that we look at update, okay? So you can think of this as this record was copied to a new line and the current record that came in now inserted with the most recent data. I don't want to confuse you, but you have to reason in that manner. So a new record is created. We all can agree on that, right?
Yeah.
Good. So the old record has been sorry. So you use the old record to create a new row, correct?
Okay, I think I get it.
All right. So you kind of insert and kind of taking place. Update, exactly. So that's pretty much what happens in merge, right? You insert a new record and create a new row with the old record for the old record. So whatever new record that coming inside is inserted, right? Then the old one, you use it to create a new row. So if you can understand it that way, that'll be good. All right, so that's where we end our merge statement. So here is our type 2, and here is our type 1. Any questions? We
Can we
good?
get this query?
Yeah.
Dolphy,
Yep.
specifically the merge statement, the upsert statement when that record matches. So the output actions that helps to each row if there is any changes. It only helps to if there is any changes, it only update the output action.
Yeah, if there is any change, yep.
Yeah.
That's when the action will happen. Yeah.
Yes.
The action doesn't happen because again, if there is no change, then the record is left as it is. So again, think about it. There are 3 things that happens when you run this query. Okay, 3 things. The first is that
insert, update,
the query we check this we check the target using the source information. Okay. Now, first, if the data based on what the source and target is saying, if the data does not match, if the data doesn't match, it means the record does not exist in the table. So it's going to insert it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the second action is if the record is in the table and matches, then it goes through the record that matches. If there's no change on the dimension column, nothing is happening, right? It does nothing.
Okay.
Then if the record matches and there is a change on the dimension column, then that column is updated, a new record is created. So 3 things that will happen when you run this query. All right, one of 3 things, right? One of 3 things. Either you're inserting a new record, or you're updating an existing record, or you're doing nothing to the record that exists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dozy.
Everybody good?
Can we run this and just see the result sets?
Good.
Yes. Yes, you will. Yes, we are. All right. The first thing is, first of all, let's see. So this is by supplier record, right? So the dimension, so see the dimension is empty, right? Now you have to run the type 2 match statement to get record inserted, okay? Because type 1 doesn't insert, it only does update to record. So let's just say I run this, right? See 0 rule affected, right? When you go here, there is nothing, right? Because merge type 1 can only update an existing record. So if the record doesn't exist, it's not going to insert it. Does that make sense? So what I'm saying is, if you create a process like this, okay, you have to run your code in this manner, okay? Type 2 first before you run type 1. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you have to run type 2 first, because type 2 will insert your record. Okay, so let's do that. So now you also see zero role affected, right? But usually the reason why you are seeing 0 role affected is because our output action is update. So there was no update performed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. But if you run this, you'll see there is data in the table. All right. But it says 0 role affected because our output action is what? Update.
Updates.
Yeah. So now, let's see. So I have ABC company. So let's update this record to ABC Company Limited. Okay. To ABC Company Limited. So something like this. I'm updating the supplier table. So now I have ABC Company Limited. Okay. So you have to run this again. Remember, again, nothing is going to happen if I run type 1 because the address did not change, right? Okay, so run this again. Now, do you see one role affected? So one role affected, yeah? Because our output action is what? Update.
Updates.
Good. So run this query, and you see the expiration date has been updated for that record for ABC Company, and a new record has been inserted with ABC Company Limited, and it's the active flag, yes. Okay.
Okay.
So now, as you can see, it has this, right? Same supplier code. So let's update the address of this XYZ. Let's update the address to USA. Let's see. So let's just update it to Canada. Right? So here. to update that address. That address to Canada. Where supplier code is this. Let's try the ABC company, right? Oh, yes. Let's try the 002.
Yeah.
Let's still use the 001. Right? Now, what will happen is it's going to update all the address, including this and this, right? So if you want to eliminate it updating this, what do we do?
Is anywhere close?
Anywhere. So we can add what? Okay, so let's do that. Supplier, update it to Canada. All right. So now this is updated to Canada. So let's run our so we still have this. Now I want to run this first. Type 2, see what change we're gonna get. Can you see here? Zero rel affected. That means our dimensions still remain the same, right? So type 2 has no impact on what we just did. So, but let's try type 1 then, right? 2 rel affected, right? So everything about this, see here, has changed to Canada, right? See that? So if we want to update this, okay, without impacting the old record, okay, without impacting the old record, then we can add a where condition, okay? You can add a where condition here where supplier code is equal to supplier code and current flag not equal to n. Okay. And current flag not equal to n. So with that, we can restrict our update only, okay,
on the third row.
On the third row. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Still,
this
step is still type 1.
Which one? The last one?
What we just did now, changing the address because it overrides what is there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's type 1. So here we say right here, this is replace yes type 1 Okay. So I see the type 1. You can say this updates old record with new one. Yeah. All right. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
There's the code.
I am doing that. It's coming.
Yeah.
All right, people.
Thank you.
All right. Is everybody good? Questions? Comment? Rebuttal? According to Mika. Are we still here?
Oh, yeah, we're updating our record too, so that's why we're quiet.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you. All right. I think that's where we are.